the SP 500 and the Nasdaq 100. So again, as we look at today, really great action to start the day. Really good action, basically almost into power hour. We moved to like noon, and then things fall off a cliff, right? What happens? You start dropping. You basically have a great move into 18.5, working to 18.6, and then you drop. And you come right back down to that major level we talked about in the beginning of the week is your line in the sand, 18K flat, 1850 roughly. And that's where you're finding support and our Lux algo levels here as well. This is pretty important now as we're moving into the end of the week, which is Friday tomorrow. Now to start today, you had great action. We had the bear break up over, the past 2 weeks, consolidation, bouncing on previous highs and moving back up. Again, followed by that tragic dump, coming back down into our levels as mentioned as well there. We go into Dow, very similar things, dropping through to our last line of defense. These are all levels that we've had here for some time. Dow was the only real index that didn't look good, coming back into previous highs, but getting rejected there. But ultimately, this is kind of something you don't want to see. You definitely see the narrative switching over. You see DXY getting a little bit of love. We go to the 30-year yield. You see the 30-year yield kind of still coming down, but overall, that's where we're at now. Now, if we don't know, basically, Fed members came out, and it's leaning more towards not a hike in the summer. Again, the reason why we were dropping in the first place. Very interesting to see, right? So we were dropping, initially because of no hike, and we move up, and then Fed members come out again and say, well, why do we need a hike? And we drop back down. This is why I keep saying this. At the end of the day, in my opinion, it all comes back down to Powell. We've seen these dips happen, specifically on the Nasdaq and ES, from the we're gonna keep pause and we're not gonna cut rates for another month or two. But what I will say is if we zoom out, every time we've had these, it's been decent opportunities. Now, what I will say here before we jump too far into this or we seem, biased is if you start breaking below, specifically QQQ, this is what I'm watching. Below this level right here, this is where you might start flipping your bias. 433, 432.5. You break that level, you could start free falling into 425, like a $7, $8 drop. I would be the first one to short it if we lose that level. So that's what I'd be watching there. So if we start getting downside, we lose this level, you're looking for almost immediate downside into 425. Okay, you go into SPY. You look here. Again, you start losing this level closer down to 508. I start to, flip my narrative as well. Again, you have a little bit more, wiggle room here on SPY, but I will say is that's what I'm looking at. Because right now, all I care about is if we're making higher highs and higher lows. Now, right now, we technically didn't make a higher high there. Worth mentioning, you push down and we haven't made a lower low yet. So we're still operating in the uptrend. Now, it's not as clear and clean as it was before, but we still are. Now, also too, if you see the indicators on my screen, now I don't like to use the volume one on my YouTube videos because it gives me a little bit of clutter, but it really helps me for day trading, and I use them on Twitter all the time to give you guys an update. You can actually use the link down below from Lux Algo. If you use code OD40, OD as an option drops 40, you will get 40% off your initial first buy. I'm going to tell you that right now. There's a certain amount. Use them while you can. I gave them to Discord members. We had a few extras, so you guys can take advantage while they are there. I'm just giving you the discount code just so you have it. Anyways, that's what we're looking at there. So that's ultimately there. Now, volume action here. Today was definitely interesting because you got good volume on that drop as well. Sellers actually stepped in. This was one narrative that I was talking about while you were dropping was it's hard to be bearish if sellers aren't stepping in during market hours, right? I think it's easy to understand. Now, when I look at what's happening here, right, you actually had selling volume step in immediately when that took place. That's an actual good narrative if you're a bear or if you're trying to trade the downside, which again is why if we start breaking below 508, 508, you're probably going to drop down to 505. And then after that, you're pretty illiquid down to 496. QQQ already went over those levels as well. So make sure you understand that. Going into Edgeful, we look at some of the action where, again, at least we're seeing the volume step up, right? We expect Thursday and Friday to be our best volume days throughout the week. And finally, we're getting some normalcy on that clock, right? Even though we were looking good and green, bad news came out, it shot us down. So yes, we're back on track with decent volume there as well, okay? Very important to understand. Now, going into price action, looking at what typically happens here, in case you forgot, high and low close of the week. We usually get our either peaks, the lows near, Wednesday, typically, right? Wednesday, it's typically that day. Fridays have been our peaks on the highs. We're probably not going to get our highest close of the week tomorrow. Worth mentioning, less incredible amount of buying takes place, but that's where we're at right now. So overall, waiting, seeing how we're acting here. Again, the big news here, the big thing you're waiting for is QQQ Nasdaq breaking below your key level, getting below 433. Under 433, it's a sell, sell, sell at that point in time because you see instant selling across the board. Now, we've gone over DXY, I've gone over a lot of that. So today's video should be pretty quick. Let's cover tech because this is the interesting part. Now, we had some great trades on the day, fantastic trades. I can't complain. Today was actually a really solid day. We traded the upside, then Jay caught the downside on NVIDIA. So congrats. Thank you, Jay. You're the real MVP. So you start the day with Meta, you push into all-time highs, and then you shoot back down. Meta is very simple. Guys, I'm going to be really clear here. Meta, if you hold above 504, I love it. Looks great. And honestly, if you bounce at 507, you look good too. But if you're trading the downside, which I will be watching, the break, retest, and continuation to the downside. 504. That's your major level. I told you on repeat. You get above 504, it's a long. Same thing to the downside, guys. Break that level, downside, downside, downside. AMD, this was interesting. I've been telling you guys, what do you want to do? You break 185, you go long. You break 174, you go short. Well, you broke 174.7 today, and you went straight down to our next level near 164. Not a surprise. The same levels I mentioned to you guys, you can play them both ways. Letting you know. Understand that. Pay close attention to that as well. Okay, make sure you understand that. Apple, we'll be watching Apple. I mentioned how this was a potential buying opportunity yesterday. You bounced, and you were bouncing really good today. You really were. But again, bad news. Apple's going to weaker name. If Apple loses 168, you can expect selling immediately on this name. I'd be looking down towards 165.8. Going to let you know. Okay, that's what I'd be looking for. Okay, pay very close attention to that as well. Robinhood, all things considered, trying to hold up, holding your higher lows. If this starts to break below 18.2, I could see selling stepping in. We'll have to pay attention to that too. Again, data position, that's my opinion there. Don't really have an update for that to let you know. Netflix, you're holding 615 so far. Great push, great trade from yesterday, but if you get below 615, I could start seeing 605 into low 600s as well. Pay attention, good level there. Very important to watch. Amazon, great trade into 185. Congratulations if you caught it. You're coming back down to that end descending triangle. If you start seeing buying here on the market and holding here, Amazon's an easy buy in my opinion. I'm not going to go crazy, but again, what I'd be watching, very interesting. I like what it's doing. Could be great. Target, you started losing the 200 SMA. Gross, not ideal. Again, bad news hit to the market. You can't do nothing about it. I still like Target a lot. I want to buy more longs, to be honest. But yeah, the market's just pulling back here, especially the Dow as well. So again, not beautiful, not what you want to see. Operating below this, you can see a retest maybe of 164, 168, 169, roughly there as well. Google, you got back below our levels, 151.5. You can start pulling back really quick here as well. I could see us pulling back into 146, 146.5, possibly to go fill that gap down towards 143.5 as well. Okay, again, that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm watching there in those names. Now, again, there's not too much at the cover today. There's no need for me to go over everything super in detail. But those are the names I'm looking at. Those are the names I'm trading. Those are the names I'm paying very close attention to. Okay, Bitcoin actually is holding up pretty well, all things considered here. You hit 69.2K. You need to get above 69.2. You get above 69.2. I think you're moving back into highs. Personally, halving is coming up, I think, in like 10, 11 days. So again, I do love everything that's taking place there. Super happy with everything across the board as it is right now. So overall, can't complain. Happy with where we're at. Market, yeah, you got a pullback, but I need to see if you're actually going to get continuation to the downside here. There's no point in jumping to conclusion, going all in, slamming shorts, jumping the gun. We've seen how that plays out in the long run. So that's me personally. Do what you got to do. If you have any questions, comment down below. See you guys tomorrow.